Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Saturday, the 22nd day of March, 2025. And although it's the Sabbath in Israel and everything shuts down, it is anything but quiet. Indeed, there is trouble for Israel on a number of fronts. This includes the negotiations of the United States with Hamas. This has taken an ugly turn, as we'll talk about. Fighting has also returned to Lebanon. And in another story, Israel bombs Syrian military bases. So it's anything but quiet there right now. Here are the headlines. First of all, Witkoff, the ambassador from U.S., his whatever you want to call him, the envoy of Donald Trump. Here's what he said in an interview with Tucker Carlson. Hamas can be politically active in Gaza after it disarms. The man shows total ignorance in this interview. We'll talk about this. The people of Israel are livid. Even though it's the Sabbath, there have been over 100 comments on the Jerusalem Post article, and believe me, they are mad. All right, to make matters worse, we have rockets now fired from Lebanon that target northern Israel after a 3.5 month peace there, cease firing. The Metula mayor, Metula is the city at the very top of northern Israel. He accuses Israel of security failure after the Lebanon rocket fire. And to make matters worse, the Israeli Defense Forces struck some Syrian military bases to neutralize threats from that country. All right, now for the details. Headline number one. Hamas can be politically active in Gaza after it disarms, Witkoff says. It's from the Jerusalem Post. All right. Steve Witkoff, U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy to the Middle East, said Hamas could still be involved in Gaza politically after they have been demilitarized in an interview with Tucker Carlson. They need to demilitarize, and then they might also be politically involved in Gaza, he said, while discussing Hamas's rationale and goals for negotiations. We need to understand what Hamas wants, and then think about what we can offer them to make them leave. This is what needs to happen here. At the start of the conflict, we heard that Hamas is an ideology and they are ready to die. Witkoff now is challenging this idea. I don't think they are as ideologically extreme as they're often portrayed. They send young children who understand nothing to commit suicide with explosive belts. Once we understand they want to live, we can talk to them more effectively. He also talked about Gaza's reconstruction, the breadth of the proposed solutions. When I first returned from a trip there before Trump was inaugurated, we had permission from the Biden administration to collaborate with them. Trump asked, when do you think Gaza can be reconstructed? My answer was 15 to 20 years. He asked why, and I explained the battlefield conditions. Gaza is decimated. There are tunnels underneath, making it look like Swiss cheese. Then the area got hit with bunker buster bombs, so there's no rock left to build on. Okay, so he said that. And he also said the Israeli public the majority of the Israeli public wants the war to stop, wants to stop fighting with Hamas, which is just certainly untrue. They'd like the war to end, but not until Hamas is defeated. Okay, so it gets even worse as you read the article. Now, recall that this is an interview with noted anti-Israeli Tucker Carlson, who is very much anti-Semitic. Now, Witkoff sounds like the previous fool, Adam Bowler. Remember him? He came, the first one dealing directly with Hamas. He had to be replaced after one meeting. He basically called these murderers nice guys, calling the Israeli hostages prisoners, and then the Hamas prisoners that are in jail hostages. So he got the heave ho. Now this guy seemingly is following suit. Now, even though it's the Sabbath, the article from the Jerusalem Post have had over 100 comments about Witkoff's statements, all of them negative. Let me give you a small sample of what the Israelis are saying. Witkoff may be a good negotiator or politician, but he clearly does not understand jihadism and does not understand jihadist Hamas. How can we see this? By his statement that Hamas can still be politically active after they disarm. And the writer says, doubly wrong. The only way Hamas will disarm is when either all members are dead or all their weapons are destroyed or confiscated. If Hamas will remain politically active in Gaza after the war, the same play will happen again, building tunnels, building rocket launchers, training for the next October 7th. This person is certainly correct. Another person writes, Witkoff is corrected by Qatar to the tune of 600 million plus. He was never a fair negotiator, plus he is an American Jew, no friend of Israel. Told you all. The plan is not to erase Hamas, but to position them to make Witkoff's descendants rich when it's their turn to rebuild Gaza for profit. Remember, Witkoff is into real estate. That's the reason for this perpetual war happens and can't seem to be won. despite Israel's superior military forces. And finally, a third comment. They're quoting the article, we need to understand what Hamas wants and then think about what we can offer them to make them leave. Dear Steve, have you still not understood what Hamas wants? Hamas wants Israel to disappear. Hamas wants all Jews to die, or as an act of benevolence, it would leave them alive as long as they leave their land. Hamas wants to dismantle Israel. How many rocket showers and how many 10-7s do you need to understand this? And so it goes on and on and on. Again, since it's the Sabbath, the Shabbat, there's no official response from the government, and the earliest we'll have will be later tonight, Israeli time. They're 10 hours ahead. We're at 5:30 in the morning here on the West Coast doing this. It's about 3:30 or so. I think it's 3:30 now in the afternoon in Israel, and the Shabbat doesn't begin for a few hours, so there won't be anything from the official sources. So basically, his words are beyond terrible. There's no understanding, it seems, what Hamas wants and their singular goal of the destruction of Israel. So this is really sad, really, really sad, really pathetic. It sounds like back with the Biden people that came as envoys for them. All right, if that's not bad enough, here's some other problems Israel has this morning. Headline number 2, rockets fired from Lebanon target northern Israel. Upper Galilee comes under rocket attack for the first time in 3.5 months. No injuries were reported after aerial defenses intercepted the rockets. The IDF responds with artillery fire. The Israeli Defense Force said on Saturday that its aerial defenses intercepted 3 rockets fired from Lebanon at northern Israel. This is the first time the Upper Galilee has been targeted by rockets in 3.5 months. Defense Minister Israel Katz said the Lebanese government bears responsibility for any rocket fired at Israel. The IDF fired artillery shells into Lebanon, local media said, after at least 6 rockets were launched targeting Metula. Again, Metula in Upper Galilee is the city that's right on the border. So here we go again. Just want to look like there'll be peace and security on Israel's northern border. Obviously, this does not make the people in the north happy. We have friends that live there and have relatives there, and they've just been talking about how horrific it's been this entire time since October 7th, 2023. And seemingly for a long time, they were forgotten by the Israeli leadership. All right, the Metula mayor, we'll talk about what he said next in headline number 3. He accuses Israel's security failure after the Lebanon rocket fire. Despite assurances from the Israeli Defense Force and government that residents could return safely to their homes near the border with Lebanon, only 8% of Metula's population returned. The local mayor slams the military government for returning to pre-war policies. The IDF said on Saturday it intended to respond with force to a rocket attack targeting the Upper Galilee. As I mentioned in previous stories, 6 rockets were launched from south of Lebanon to the border town in the early morning hours. 3 fell short of the border and 3 were intercepted. No changes were announced to the instructions issued by the IDF Home Front Command. And so they're very, very upset, as they have been with the Israeli government. So what's going to happen next? Is there going to be more fighting in Lebanon? Well, time will tell. Now, if that's not bad enough, next door in Syria, remember they've got the new government there after ousting Assad. The IDF strikes Syrian military bases to neutralize threats. IDF strikes military strategic capabilities that remained at the Syrian military bases of Tadmor and T4. It says it will continue to act in order to remove any threat posed to the citizens of the state of Israel. They said this. They did this because they will continue to act in order to remove threat posed by the new government there. It's military targets that belong to the old Syrian regime of Bashar Assad, which was ousted by the rebels. And the operation is to further degrade any military infrastructure of the old Syrian regime for fear it would fall into hostile elements that are now operating in the country, because we know this new ruler is a former member of Islamic State, ISIS. He is just, he's a terrorist. He's just a terrorist who's put a suit on, and there's no difference, no change whatsoever. As we've talked about, the Alawites, that is the minority population of Syria, they're being slaughtered by the factions of the new government, as well as the Christians. And we've really talked about that and prayed and asked for prayer on that, because they're also being targeted. Because unlike Assad, who did the live and let live with the Christians, this is not the same with these Sunni Muslims who want to see the Christians destroyed. So It is not good. In late February, Defense Minister Katz confirmed that Israel was striking targets in Syria, saying the Air Force is currently striking with force in southern Syria as part of the new policy we have defined of demilitarizing southern Syria. And the message is clear. We will not allow southern Syria to turn into another southern Lebanon. All right, so here we are to sum up. Just when the citizens of Israel think they may have peace for the time being, we have these events happen. This situation fits exactly with our sign number 7 in our book 25 signs. We're near the end. There'll be a continual search for peace in Israel. Just when they think they got it, they don't have it. Now, here's what we do know. There will be someone else who eventually come along and offer peace to Israel, and this person will be hailed as their savior. For more on this, please see our book, The Final Caesar, the Final Antichrist, The Coming Caesar. Now, these books, along with all of our others, are free downloads from our website, Educating Our World. So please take advantage of them if you want to know thoroughly what the Bible says is going to happen. But this is right in line with what we have expected to happen, where it seems they've almost be at peace. They're not. They're moving towards that. They're eventually going to have, for a time, on their northern border and their southern border, and with Iran, supposed, peace and respite from any strikes. And that's why they're going to be, again, when they're not expecting it, the Russian invasion will eventually happen. And that's when God supernaturally intervenes, according to Ezekiel 38:39. The situation is not there yet. They're obviously, still concerned about fighting from Lebanon, fighting from Gaza, fighting from Iran, but that'll be eradicated to some degree someday. But that is not the day today. And of course, as we've said, other things still need to happen before Ezekiel 38:39 can take place. Libya must be able to form an army, and the United States must be totally out of the picture with respect to Israel. That has not happened yet. All right, I'm Don Stewart. Again, thanks for watching. We will be back, of course, later today with the second edition of Breaking News after, hopefully we'll get some response from Israel about what Witkoff said and the other things going on after this Sabbath is over. So until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.